Since the new iPhone 14 has arrived, more and more issues have been reported with iPhone 14 Pro units. Sometimes it's the camera rattling, other times the battery is draining too fast, or even problems with restoring data onto a new phone. iOS 16 has brought with it a remarkably worrying list of problems. So let's find out more details about these problems and how Apple has tried to tackle them. First off, the camera rumbles. There have been some complaints regarding the iPhone 14 camera, or more precisely, rumbles from its camera. Owners reported that the model's new 48-megapixel primary camera cannot capture photographs and videos in third-party apps such as Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. Furthermore, the issue appears to be causing actual harm to the lens. It appears that third-party applications like Snapchat or Instagram can lead the camera of the iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max to start shaking wildly and noisily for specific users. However, it's unknown how many iPhones are impacted. The rattling ceases when the program is stopped, and the issue does not appear to occur while using Apple's default camera app. Like tech YouTuber Luke Miani, owners have flocked to social media to voice their confusion. Early indications suggest that the strange problem is caused by the camera rather than the phone's vibration actuator. Miani revealed the bug while utilizing the primary camera in third-party apps. As a result, the optical image stabilization fails, causing the lens to shake excessively and make audible noise. The issue has been reported on Reddit and TikTok, and Miani claims that after they posted about it on Twitter, a surprising number of others claimed they had encountered this on their Pros and Pro Maxes as well. A close-up in Miani's entire video evaluation clearly shows the iPhone's primary camera lens bouncing in all directions in its casing. According to sources, it might be due to a flaw that causes the camera's stabilizer, which includes sensor shift image stabilization, to twitch, but no one knows for sure. Meanwhile, users are advised not to use third-party camera programs for the risk of irreparably harming them. Furthermore, this intense shaking might have long-term consequences. Miani said that worst of all, users began to observe damage to the actual camera itself. It got very difficult to focus, and it finally refused to focus on close items, even in the standard camera app. The phone was replaced after being taken to an Apple shop. It remains to be seen whether Apple can solve this via software. Still, it will be a race against time for afflicted consumers until the shaking physically damages the primary camera. As is generally the case, this problem will be resolved with a future software update. Regardless, it's a sloppy blunder on the part of Apple, which was previously known for its attention to detail. Apple later acknowledged that a solution for the camera problem in iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max versions, which causes the phone's primary camera lens to physically shake when used in third-party apps, was in the works. Apple promises that the patch, probably in the form of iOS 16.0.2, will be available shortly. This is a quick reaction from Apple, but timing is also crucial after Miani disclosed the camera shaking in his impacted iPhone 14 Pro finally caused the camera to fail, which was fixed under warranty at an Apple shop. As a result, the longer the solution takes, the more iPhones will likely need repairing or replacing at Apple's expense. Snap, the company behind Snapchat, also acknowledged that it has been working directly with Apple on a patch after its app and Instagram, TikTok, and others were discovered to be affected by the bug. The issue is the latest in a series of iPhone 14 iOS 16 launch troubles, including new phone activation issues and a slew of faults in iOS 16. Each new version of iOS brings new bugs, but iOS 16 looks to have caused more than expected. Don't go anywhere. We're going to discuss iOS updates 16.0.1 and 16.0.2. Next up, CarPlay and data migration failures. It's not the best moment to purchase any iPhone 14 model. Apple's new line was plagued by several issues at launch, prompting Apple to provide 2 emergency patches, but the problems keep piling up. The most recent problems include CarPlay phone conversations and data migration. Apple has recognized 2 separate flaws with the latter. First, with CarPlay, users of all iPhone 14 models report severely poor phone quality and loudness levels. The issue appears to be widespread as people have discovered complaints on Reddit, Twitter, the Apple support community, and the company's own forums. Someone recently updated the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Since then, everyone they've called has complained that they can hardly hear them on CarPlay, as if they're whispering. They say it's louder on Bluetooth, but it seems like they're in a wind tunnel, and it's still impossible to hear. So it's clear that there's a problem with the new phone, iOS, but what can they do about it? According to sources, iOS 16.0.2 has lessened the problem, if not entirely resolved. So at least unofficially, Apple appears to be aware of the problem. While Apple has yet to respond, it has acknowledged new data migration issues, with iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max. The company admits in an internal document that iPhone 14 Pro devices may stall when owners transfer data from an earlier iPhone. This may happen in two ways: through an iCloud restoration or through a data transfer during the Quick Start procedure. Apple advises that iPhone users force restart their devices if they have been inactive for 5 minutes or longer. It is presently uncertain if any data was corrupted due to the restart or the first freeze. When these flaws are combined with a slew of iOS 16 faults, it looks like early adopters are once again paying for their excitement. Only 8 days after the introduction of iOS 16, 2 dedicated bug patches have already been issued, with many more to come. Moving on, what issues does iOS 16.0.1 solve? Apple published iOS 16.0.1 mainly to solve data transfer, authorization, and photo concerns. Then, the business reported new issues with iMessage and FaceTime. In a new support article, Apple also admits that iMessage and FaceTime may not finish activation on iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Pro, and that problems may persist even after updating to iOS 16.0.1. According to Apple's iOS 16.0.1 release notes, the update includes important bug fixes and mentions 3 updates. It resolves a problem with activation and migration during iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Pro setups. Second, while zooming in landscape mode on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the images may seem soft. Finally, enterprise single sign-on applications may fail to authenticate. Apple has a habit of failing to list all the changes in its iOS release notes, so we'd be shocked if there aren't more beneath the hood. iOS 16.0.1 has no security patches, according to Apple's security website. That was hardly surprising, given that iOS 16 and iOS 15.7 had just received many fixes. So, what issues remain unresolved? According to Apple, when you first set up your iPhone, you may encounter any or all the following issues. You cannot receive iMessages or FaceTime calls, and you see a green text bubble instead of a blue one when sending a message to another Apple device, or conversations and messages appear as 2 separate threads rather than one. Apple iOS 16 is a bug-ridden disaster, and iOS 16.0.1 will be the first of several devoted bug patches. Unfortunately, however, not everyone is capable of acquiring it. Apple iOS 16.0.1 is only available for the iPhone 14 models, iPhone 14, iPhone 14 Plus, iPhone 14 Pro, and iPhone 14 Pro Max. Apple acknowledged auto-update delays earlier this year. Therefore, it's preferable to manually initiate the update by going to Settings, then General, and then Software Update. If you're using newer beta software, you'll need to enroll your device before the update shows. There did not appear to be any new additional issues. However, iOS 16.0.1 does not solve any of the numerous existing problems identified by users of older iPhones. Among them are update failures, touch responsiveness delays, and several eye-catching user interface flaws. These are all reported with sync difficulties, even with Apple Watch, a blank screen snapshot glitch, AirPlay troubles, MMS communications, and erratic volume and brightness settings. There are also several complaints about power consumption with iOS 16. Battery drain briefly increases following an iOS upgrade due to re-indexing, but it should have decreased by now. Finally, any future updates we can expect? Apple is working on an update, most likely iOS 16.0.3, that will address all the previously reported vulnerabilities as well as any other issues on Apple devices running the iOS 16 version. We do not know when the update will be formally released, but it is likely to arrive in the second week of October. Apple is also working on a substantial upgrade, namely iOS 16.1, a successor to iOS 16.0, which will include the enhancements mentioned during the iPhone 14 launch event. The upgrade is scheduled to be released before the end of October. The features include live activities and third-party applications, an exclusive section for U.S. residents, i.e. clean energy charging, which activates when electricity grids become less constrained and more green energy is available, support for Apple Fitness Plus without the Apple Watch, a battery percentage indicator for those of us without it, and many more. That's a wrap for this video. Do let us know if you think Apple has failed to deliver at its usual high standards. Do not forget to hit a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Bye!